I am back, my chapos. It is I, Lord Pembleton III. And boy, do I have a story for you. So to give some context, over the past few weeks where I've been gone, I've been in the country of Slovakia. And in Slovakia, basically we have a custom on November the 1st where we basically go to cemeteries, light candles for the dead, and remember them basically, for their memory. And that's one of the things I've been doing in Slovakia, basically, because my grandfather has recently passed away during this year, and I had to, not that I had to, actually, I wanted to go to his, remembrance, his own personal remembrance. So that's one of the things that we've been doing. Another thing that we have been doing is trying to renew my Slovak ID. So to give you some context, in Slovakia we don't really use passports for legal documents and just personal things in general. We use ID cards. That's our main way of doing it, and I had to go renew that, and also in the process also get a Slovak passport, which I didn't really have one because I never needed one because I'm a British citizen. And that's basically the general gist of what has been going. I can make a whole video about my hometown Tornala, and to give you some history lesson on how I got here, how I got to this place in my life. It's unfortunately a very tragic story. A lot of retardation in it, mixed in there with a little bit. But anyway, the basic gist of it is that I was gone, and now I'm back, and I've made a couple of decisions while I was away. Got to really think about what I want to do in my life, And I've always knew what I wanted to do in my life, but I made a couple of decisions to get where I want to be. So to give you some context, I want to start a business where I bind books, which I know has historically not been really the best idea, but I've got a way to to vamp it up, bring it into the more modern age. Even though I do want to keep it very historical, very prestigious in Oxford, because a lot of people come over here for the history, and I think I could fill that sort of historical binding ties, but throw in some new ways of basically getting it more profitable to where I want to be. So yeah, I'll be doing that, and I might actually document my business venture, and maybe even help people out who are trying to get into business itself. After all, I'm not a business student, but I do have the understanding of what there is to start a business. I can kind of get people into the right rhythm. It's already a lot about research, understanding what your market is, but that's the basic gist of it. Another thing I want to talk about is a YouTube video that I've watched while away that has personally really been extremely bad in terms of its research, and as somebody who loves history, loves specifically medieval history, this video has been really bad. It's really poorly researched, and it's actually really damaging to the images of medieval people, which people believe that medieval people were these lunatics that were trying to kill everybody, torture everybody, blah blah, and that's not really the case. I will do probably a video trying to go through the video, but to give you some context, there's a YouTuber called Mini Minute Man, aka Milo, who creates all these archaeological videos and also tries to debunk conspiracy theories, all this incorrect rhetoric about cultures of the past. However, he doesn't always land the mark in trying to get out the proper information, the correct information, and sometimes that really irks me, that really annoys me. And let's just say his new videos on vampires was the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, in the video, he basically goes through trying to talk about medieval people and how they had these vampire/revenant burials, and unfortunately, I understand where he might have gotten mixed up, because there's a lot of news articles that are promoting this idea that yes, those were revenant burials, but that's not really the case. It's actually called a deviant burial. There's actually a paper on it kind of disproving this rhetoric that it was mainly about, burials of revenants slash what we might think is the closest thing is vampires, but that's not really the case. Very few of them actually are. Or there's a possibility that very few burials are actually revenant burials, because A, the church didn't really allow the belief in that. There was actually a lot of councils in the early medieval ages that actually outlawed the belief in witches, revenants slash vampires, ghosts, this whole stuff that they deem to be pagan superstition. There's actually a really interesting video that I will be using to debunk the myth that medieval people believed in witches and did horrible stuff to them. That's just not the case. But there's also other aspects of the video that really irk me, and unfortunately he's doing sort of the same thing he's kind of trying to prevent with other cultures, but he's not really being fair to the medieval culture, and also medieval Christianity as a whole. I don't mind him sort of laying down to the issues with the past, people's issues of the past, but be consistent, and also don't try to spread misinformation, which unfortunately he has, especially in this video. And I will kind of give him a little bit of a, trying to help a helping hand. I do not have any ill will against Milo. I really like his videos. I want to actually lend a hand if you would like me to help him out with some of his information on specifically medieval history, and also the history of Christianity, and also some evolutionary biology, especially the history of mammoths. So first of all, to tackle the myth about vampire burials slash revenant burials. So this paper is published by Leszek Gardella, and I believe he was one of the groups that actually discovered one of the first, well, not the first, but one of the burials that the deviant burials that Milo was discussing about in his early vampire burial. So he basically, to give you some context, he talks about sort of, the deviant burials. What were they for? Perhaps talking about the details and where were they found. And he also goes through trying to dismantle the sensational interpretation of deviant burials, where the media has been trying to portray them as basically being vampire burials or revenant burials, trying to stop the dead from rising back up, which is not really the case. Actually goes around to basically suggest some alternative explanations of why deviant burials were a thing. What was the culture surrounding them. It's actually a really interesting read. This paper is free to read online for anybody who wants it, and overall it kind of it paints a little bit of a different picture than how Milo's videos were trying to. In this paper, it kind of gives you much more of a varied answer. They do not say that there were no quote-unquote revenant vampire burials themselves. They say the vast majority of it are not the case, and have to be taken. The ones that are have to be taken with extreme grains of salt, because they're not. There's a lot of debate and discussion around it, but in my opinion, it wouldn't be the case, because there were several councils in early medieval Europe for a lot of countries that specifically forbade the belief in these sort of superstitions, in the belief in witches and vampires or revenants, ghosts, etc., etc. And if you actually got caught trying to, accuse people of being sort of witches, vampires, etc., you were the one who was in trouble, and you could, in specific circumstances, you could also be executed. So actually, it's a reverse of what it was like during the 16th to 17th century in that kind of area. But I will be talking about that in my next video, which will give you a much more overarching view of, you know, the history of really witch hunts themselves, which I'll do that later on. But anyway, this paper basically describes everything. It kind of disputes a lot of the rhetoric that Milo was pushing in his video, but you know, it was very easy to Google this. It took me like 5 minutes to find this paper. That would have been so easy to do. So, you know, I don't want to be too harsh on Milo, but again, he didn't really do a lot of proper research in his video. It's very much just spreading a whole bunch of misinformation and lies. Anyway, now I'll be talking about sort of the history of mammoths and sort of the Bergman Rule in general. So to give you some context, there was a video where Milo was trying to show the Bergman Rule in action, which is when basically animals in colder climates will tend to yield larger bodies, larger frames than animals from warmer climates. And let's just debunk this rule. No, there's very few animals that actually do get larger in colder climates. He used the polar bear for one example, which polar bears are not that big, as he shows. While standing on all fours, their height is basically around from 1.3 meters to 1.5 meters, so just a little bit shorter than me. Actually, significantly shorter than I am, even. And also, they weren't even the largest bear. The largest bear was the South American short-faced bear, aka Arctotherium, which was significantly big. It would actually be taller than I am on all fours, which was in a warmer climate. And also, mammoths themselves, not all mammoths were adapted for the cold. One of the larger specimens, the Colombian mammoth, who reached, you know, quite taller than even modern-day elephants, and even majority of mammoths, besides a couple of few ones, was adapted for a warmer climate, compared to, you know, the woolly mammoth, who was shorter and much more compact than a African bush elephant. So this understanding of the Bergman Rule, it's not really true. It is very much sort of a misconception, as I would say. For instance, he tried to use the penguin as an example, which yes, but the penguins, they need that bulkier frame because they need much more feathers. As they live in the Antarctic, they need that warmth, you know, as birds who don't really have that option to warm up. And although yes, you got something like the elephant seal, they need all that extra bulk for blubber. But if you kind of take other animals, let's say the largest one, the blue whale, they're not really adapted for cold climates. They can, but they're much more adapted for, you know, more temperate, more warmer climates than the animals in the colder regions of the Earth. So it's not really the case. And also another thing that I want to touch upon is his understanding and sort of how he portrays medieval Christians, especially early medieval Christians. He said that they basically, submitted everyone under their will, and they basically just conquered their way to spread Christianity, which is not really the case. The earlier forms of Christianity really just did a lot of did everything sort of diplomatically. They spread it through missionaries, and let's say, for instance, a good example of this is how Christianity spread about the Anglo-Saxons. Actually, originally the Anglo-Saxons actually fought off they basically, first of all, when they conquered Britain, they wiped out all the Christians in the continent. They actually kicked them out, and through warring. And it was not until 200 years later, where missionaries came to Anglo-Saxons, that they actually spread the gospel and eventually converted all of the hierarchy of the Anglo-Saxon Britain into becoming Christians. That's how they originally did it. We can kind of point to much later forms of conversions that were not really done in the best way, but early medieval Christians, no. They didn't spread their... They didn't really force people into becoming Christians. That was very much a later, and only very few instances in later Christianity where that happened. Unfortunately, he's portraying it in a very harsh light and very damaging light that could be also harmful to some people even today, unfortunately. But, you know, unfortunately, I can't really blame him too much, as this is kind of a rhetoric that is pushed amongst a lot of people that is just not really true. But I want to give Milo a helping hand, a welcoming hand, if he needs to understand a lot more about people's history and culture, especially during the medieval Europe. I'm more than happy to help out and try to teach him. If he doesn't want that from me, you can also go to other more experts in the field who are probably even more knowledgeable than I am, and try to get a good understanding of how people were back in the day. Because unfortunately, again, the Hollywood and media in general does not do it justice. That's the case. But yeah, I love your videos. Not all of them are great. In fact, there's a large chunk that are unfortunately really poorly researched. But I want to help out. Especially help you spread the correct information, the truthful information. Not correct, truthful information, and sort of push a rhetoric that shows the actual history of medieval Europe, medieval Christianity in general, and give you a better understanding of how to do it does, because actually majority of science was actually conducted by sort of medieval Christians. So yeah, again, if you like this video, like and subscribe, and my next video should be on the debunking the myth that medieval people believed in witches, which is still in the works, unfortunately. Everything had to be pushed back, so even though it's supposed to be issued for Halloween, it might be issued till mid-November, when I'll be able to pump it out. But anyway, thank you everyone, bye bye.